Yo, what's poppin'? It's Tommathan. So I want to do something a little bit different with this week's power ranking video because it'd be kind of Mickey Mouse. Wasn't a lot of important games, and I want to save the big power rankings for next weekend, whenever we're going to playoffs. So I want to take a look at my preseason power rankings and compare them to what's going on now. So there's some things that are pretty right. There are some things that are pretty wrong. Looking at my Toronto Defiant top three take there, maybe a little bit of bias there, but yeah. So first up, New York Excelsior at the bottom, not too far off with that one. A lot of people, you know what? It was a team that were like, oh, they have the potential. A lot of teams expected better. Apparently, I didn't. So I thought New York would be the worst. I don't exactly know why. Maybe I think it was largely because they didn't have a main support, which was a big reason for them not succeeding. I also didn't like that Kellen was only able to play main tank, and that was also another reason they didn't succeed. So, maybe my ideas there showed out to be decent. But then we have Houston at the second last, which does not look very good either. And I believe this was also because I didn't think they'd have a main support. And as it turned out, Lastro perfectly suitable to be able to come in and fill that role. But I also wasn't sold as Piggy as their only tank. However, I did not foresee Dante coming in. And of course, this is drastically wrong. Houston ended up being one of the best teams, top four, 19 points, a pretty decent gap between number four and number five there, with 19 for Houston and 16 for London. And it's like, that was just wrong. Maybe I was underselling Pelican. Maybe I didn't really know about Merritt that much. I wasn't too sold on Merritt. He ends up being extremely good also. So it's like I'm okay with copping the L on that one. But then I had London next, and a lot of people did not rate London. Of course, probably if you ask around, they would have the largest um. What am I trying to say here? They did a lot better than most people thought they would, and that's pretty obvious, right? And even for me, I didn't really believe in them. Clearly, I also didn't believe in Florida, another team like that. They didn't have quite the same success as London. Well, they only have 1 point difference, and at 1 point is what separates a play-in or a playoff appearance, perhaps. Um, and that's with London missing that the first stage, so that's really impressive, especially. But I don't know, both those teams, I didn't truly believe in them. I thought, X is not going to be there at the start, so that's going to hurt them. But then Hydron was that guy anyway. I did not expect Hydron to be nearly as good. I did rate Sermon Jed. I did not rate Animo at all, though. And that was probably another reason Florida was quite low. But yeah, so not a great ranking for either of them. But that being said, Florida was only what? Three off, which I guess is pretty bad. And then I had Paris above both of them, actually. I was a huge Glister believer, huge Naga believer. I was like, you know what? This team can do things. And then Glister does do work. However, he leaves. Naga gets kicked. Who could have seen Paris doing this catastrophic? I did not see Paris blowing up in such a spectacular way at all. So I thought, you know what, they could be still bottom five. I still didn't have them very highly rated, but I was a big Glister believer, a big Naga believer, and I think if they kept Glister and Naga, now Glister did choose to leave. It was mostly his choice, from what I understand. But let's say they had kept Glister and Naga throughout this entire season, I think they probably would have been better off. And I think Glister could have stole them more than a single win. So who knows? Glister was there when they got their win, right? I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but Glister won more than everyone, like more than anyone else on Paris at the end there. That's crazy. And then I had Vancouver, a huge Aspire believer. I had higher hopes for False than what actually happened. I was kind of a false apologist at the beginning because I was like, you know what, yeah, he didn't look great, but I'm sure he'll get better as we go on. But it just never really happened, and I never really gave him a chance either in the end. Uh, but yeah, Vancouver, I did hope for better. Mossa was looking good, coming straight off of that Atlanta push, right? There's a lot of good things going on with them. It just never really came through. So bottom three it is for them, and then we have Boston. Boston also bottom four. I had them right in the middle. So far, the closest one to being right for me is New York, and that is New York and Dallas. Quickly looking at this, that I had closest to a correct placement. Yeah. So I had the high end right. I had the bottom end right, which I guess is the easy parts. So whatever. But yeah. So Boston. I don't really remember too much. Of course, this was back. I wasn't even doing Iowa content at this time. I didn't really plan on doing Iowa content for this season anyway. Kind of an aside here. I just kind of like started it, and I was like, oh, it'll make me watch the games. So I really want to watch the games and get ready for Overwatch 2. And I was like, oh, this is a good way to make me commit to watching them. So I didn't really have any plans when I made this. I just kind of made it. And Boston, I don't know. I believe I'm a big fan of Punk. I'm a big Crimzo enjoyer. I thought Striker would probably help this roster. It doesn't actually help them at all. Um, but I don't know. I wasn't entirely sure what was going on with Boston. I just liked some of those players, so I placed them about mid. I then we have Washington Justice. I'm a Washington apologist. My entire Overwatch viewing experience. I'm like, the K's there. They have everything. You have Mag now. You have so much stuff going on, and it's like they just can't. They just didn't. I don't know what to say. They very well. If you were to tell me right now that Washington were going to win the playoffs this season, I would believe you. Maybe I would believe you because that's just the kind of team they are. And I would have believed you there. And I would have. And this is I actually put a tier break in here. You can see I put the top five in a tier above their own, which isn't too far off. It's just there's a team in there that doesn't seem like they belong. And that's to the Atlanta Rain. No, but putting Atlanta, actually, I had Atlanta at 5 and they came in at 6, which isn't too bad. I didn't account for them just trolling regular seasons often, so that's on me. And I'm an Atlanta hater, but you just can't deny the talent they have. I think I also included Speedily in this, even though he only came in like halfway through, because I'm a huge Venom enjoyer, high on Speedily. I still think Speedily has more to give. You can't deny Kai. Nero came off with probably like the best performer on the Shock last season into like Atlanta as a kind of waiting for Speedily. It felt like then you had UVOG. How could you deny that? I don't know. I thought Atlanta had all the pieces. I wasn't too sold on Hawk actually. Hawk and Gator, I was not sold on them. That's probably why I had them a bit lower. But even then, I still had them top five. And Shock, I think my vision for Shock was just like I don't care that they don't have a main support. That's why they're not in top three. Is because they had Violet Finn. Uh, but I was sold on everything else about this team. From Proper, especially, you have Kilo over there. Kaluge, huge Kaluge fan, huge Kaluge enjoyer. Um, hard to say no to that team. But I didn't fully. I knew Kilo was good, right? But I wasn't fully expecting him to pop off. So he wasn't really included in this. I still had them top four, so that's not bad. And then I had Toronto. Want me to sell you my Toronto copium right now? My stocks are pretty low. I've been huffing a lot after this awful stage. But you know what? You see Chorong, most paid rookie. You see Twilight, absolute owl goat. The back line looks really good. Don't have any worries there. You bring in Hisu still. Hisu's been the best. I did have some question marks with Hoppa. I did. But I thought Muse would be good enough. I thought Muse would be solid. I thought Muse would coach. I thought it was going to be Muse winning a lot. Is what my vision was. And honestly, I wasn't entirely sure what was going with Finale, although. But I knew that they outplayed some other players. Obviously, they had to get there because I don't know. This is just hopium to the next level. Simply put, realistically, I should have had them probably below Atlanta. Is where I would have put them. But then I bumped them up the top three because defined copium. And then I had Dallas and then the Gladiators. So those were pretty spot on. And you just look at those rosters and it's obvious that they're going to pop off. Dallas looked that they fixed their only real hole from last season, being Gurio, and that didn't work out. But you know what Edson does, so who cares? And it's just the same team. And then you have Gladiators who just look spectacular. You add Reiner, bolsters that lineup a little bit. Patafan, everyone knows. I don't know. I thought that Glads were going to be that team, and it turns out they are. But not quite first, but pretty damn close. And now I will quickly turn over to the East because those are been interesting. Okay, so looking at the East, I have Valiant locked in at the bottom. Perfect. I had Charge next, and this was the Charge roster. that was the one previous, right? The revamps hadn't come through. This is preseason, so that's not like that's a bit high on them, to be honest. When looking at who they were actually fielding, you had Rio at that point. You were running Rio Krong, developed, and then I don't even remember what the hell the backline was at this point, right? I'm not like am I dumb? I can't even remember. That was so long ago now. Holy, I can almost think of the name that I want to think of, but I can't. I just can't. Um. So anyway, they're there. I did not believe in Chengdu after losing all that. I didn't. Daisy, bit of an unknown. I wasn't sure Gaga had the flexibility that he could step up, and he didn't have the flexibility. He showed that they had to play Daisy, and Daisy didn't have that level of talent they needed, or he wasn't. He was a bit lagging behind some of the other teams. And that was my biggest thing. And then I was really not a fan of Jinmu plus Leave because I was like, man, you're forcing Leave back on the hit scan. Hate that. And that's not a bad spot for the bottom three. I got the bottom three in the right spots, the wrong order. But then I had Philly dead in the middle. Um, I wasn't sure about MN3 Zest at that point. I wasn't too much of a contenders watcher. For Korea, I watched a bit, but not a lot. Um, and I was not a fan of Aim God Fixa, and I think that is also reasonable. So I think that in the middle is a pretty good spot, and they should, by all means, have been there. But the Spark just did not have a reasonable performance in the second half of that season. And my top three being Shanghai, Spark, then Seoul. Seoul was there because I wasn't sure if Smurf was going to be able to be that flexible as the only tank, and that's the only reason they end up being third, if I remember correctly. Turns out that was completely rubbish. He was all good, which is great, fantastic. Um, but that was pretty much the only reason I had him that low, or stole that low in general. And Spark, they had the tools, they have the roster, you have Shy. It was supposed to be good. Your backline gets better. You don't have to play Architect anymore, which was absolutely fantastic. I'm Architect's number one hater, to be honest. This team just not there. And then I had Shanghai at the top because I'm like, well, this roster just won. You're not making any changes. Surely they'll be okay going Overwatch 2. A bit rockier than you'd like, but an 18-6 record is nothing to turn your nose to. And they do have one of the only two like regional championships there, so not a bad pick, I think. But just looking at the differential, despite only Seoul winning one more game, they have 11 higher differential on the side. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty impressive. But yeah, so I will quickly expand this again so you can see my incorrect preseason power rankings in all of their glory right here. Um, yeah. So let me know, how are your preseason power rankings? Better than mine? Worse than mine? I think they're pretty bad. Like Houston bottom two is pretty bad. Like that's a little outrageous. Um, well, I don't know. I don't think they're awful. I think I've seen worse probably, but yeah. So this week coming up, just a quick little thing. I'm gonna do not role stars. I'm gonna do like all star teams because I think those are a lot more fun because you have to actually think about some like team stuff. I'm not role stars, but my version of role stars will be all star teams. I'll do first team all star, second team all star stuff. That will be coming up. Of course, play in previews for NA. That kind of stuff. I won't be doing the full player tier list. I'll probably wait till after the playoffs to do those because like just doing them and then having games the next week or something like that feels a bit off. So I'll just wait till the end. But the role star stuff will be good. It should be fun. Anyway, like this video. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. Kind of Edward or whatever. Have yourself a good one and deuces.